Good evening. God's blessing and protection be upon all who share and participate in the celebration of the Eucharist in this 13th Monday, 13th week in ordinary time. The Gospel today is the version of St. Matthew, which we heard yesterday. That was St. Luke's, but it's the same. One of his disciples said to him, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But Jesus answered him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their dead." The church took this literally before Vatican II. The president of the Divine Word College, 1970, I was regent there, was Joseph Bates, SVD. He told me the most difficult time in his priestly life was when his sister and his father and mother died in a vehicular accident in Minnesota. He was not allowed to go home. Nobody was allowed, not only him. He said that was the only time he took a bottle of whiskey and drank it so that he will forget his pain. During the time, they took seriously, literally, what Jesus said, "Follow me and let the dead bury their dead." Naging SVD ka, you vowed to follow Him. So, even if your father died, your mother died, your sister died, you could not go home to the United States. It was a very literal understanding. But the point is, Jesus alone. And that's very difficult to do. The firm commitment that is asked, that is required of every disciple, not only Joseph Bates who died already, not only us who have the vows, firm commitment is needed. You have to be resolute, you have to be determined. Otherwise, we will not be worthy of the name disciple. And that's why I would like to mention to you today habits of the heart. Firm commitment does not happen overnight. Starts from childhood. So if you have parents who taught you discipline, thank God. Because if you are not taught discipline early, if you will not learn to discipline yourself, to possess habits of the heart, it will be very difficult for you to make firm commitments. Yesterday, I was at Paco Cemetery, the chapel there. I celebrated the Eucharist during the anniversary of Roy and Lodi Corrales, came from the United States. 50 years together. So everyone was very happy. That requires a firm commitment also. But I saw the willpower that Roy had, because during the march, he had a stroke, almost lost his life. He had a stroke now. You could hardly understand what he is saying. And he has a cane. But during the wedding march, he gave the cane to one of his relatives, and he escorted Lodi, his wife, until the altar. Of course, he has to sit down afterwards because it took tremendous amount of willpower to conquer your body, especially if you are already old, after 50 years of married life. Habits of the heart. You could not reach 50 years without habits of the heart. June 23 was the 49th anniversary of my priesthood. Next year, 50 na. Milagro din yan. God's grace. But I was also taught discipline by my parents first, and then 10 years in the seminary. You have to wake up when the bell rings. You have to make your bed. You have to clean. You have to wash the dishes. Habits of the heart. So you better teach your kids habits of the heart. Because, as Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. What are habits of the heart for? Number one, you cultivate virtuous habits of the heart, the right values, so that you will become the person that God wants you to become. To be the best, to be all that you can be, to the best version of yourself. Yan yung number one. Self-actualization ang tawag ni Maslow dyan. But it is in wholeness, integrity, as the objective of our spirituality. And that's why we cultivate virtuous habits of the heart. The second is that you will have deep relationships. Sinabi ni Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence. Maraming mga tao, wala daw emotional intelligence kahit mataas ang IQ. So di could not relate well. And the third would be to leave a legacy. To make your life make a difference as you engage in a meaningful quest. So yung tatlo, tinatawag ko yan na integrity, wholeness, self-actualization, solidarity, deep relationships, love God, love your neighbor, love Mother Earth, and the third would be to produce something. Children can be that, write a book, build buildings, as long as you help the human race continue in its evolution, because that is the will of God. Tumulong ka. Lalo na ngayon, ang dami nating problema. Anong maitutulong mo para hindi magutom yung maraming mga bata? Duduble, triple ang gasolina. Mas mahal pa ata ang diesel ngayon kaysa gasoline. Paano nangyari yan? Kaya nga bumibili kami ng diesel para makatipid. Ngayon, mas mahal ang diesel. That will have severe implications in our lives. Tataas lahat yung bilihin, tataas ang inflation, dahil may gira sa Ukraine, nagka-COVID, tuloy-tuloy pa ngayon ang COVID, tumataas na naman daw ng kaunti, may climate change pa, iinit ng iinit yan, walang gasolina na, wala ng fuel. Bumabalik ang India sa coal. Nagsusunog ng carbon na naman. Mapapadali niyan ang climate change dahil yung maduduming hangin ng coal aakyat sa atmosphere. So you have to ask yourself, what habits of the heart, what virtues should I cultivate so that I can be the best that I can be, as God intended it, so that I will have deep relationships, fulfilling relationships, firm commitment. And the third is to produce something as your legacy. Mag-iwan ka naman ng mark dito sa daigdig, dami mong kinaing bigas. Dapat makatulong ka. So yan ang pag-isipan natin. I will leave it to your individual conscience to think about how you can be the best that you can be. You can have deep and fulfilling relationship. You could produce something that will help in the evolution of the human race towards the fullness of the kingdom at the end of time.